trained me to be a wrestler. Just give everybody a quick bio. Walter started working at a Ford plant at around 18, and somebody saw him and said you should become a wrestler. And I believe his original trainers were like Lou Dez and Carl Dodge, which wrestling fans use all those names. Those are what we call the old shooters in the business. The shooters are the guys that would mess you up. So for those of people who think that wrestling's fake, these guys are going to mess out of you. They really would. But that's who trained Walter, and he not only was a famous pro wrestler, but he was a poet. There are some poems here. I've actually have some poems that Walter gave me at certain times, birthdays and special events, and I have them in my home. He also was a fantastic photographer. This book, which is one of the lots, is called Killer Pics. And it has all the photographs that he shot. And some pro wrestlers you'll recognize, some you may not, but he also has landscapes and whatnot. So this has his photographs. The original camera that he used for it is over there behind the showcase. There's an entire setup of Hasselblad equipment, and many times we would go to these photo shoots whenever some name came into town. We'd set up the backdrop, set up the photos, and shoot them. And so you'll see a lot of the photographs that are on the tables and everything. If they're not shot at a wrestling show, it's a studio shot, Walter shot. So he was a fantastic photographer on top of everything else. And that is also for sale, the Hasselblad equipment. Walter became Killer Kowalski. First of all, he was known as Tarzan Kowalski. Then something happened where they said he bit a guy's ear off. He did not bite the guy's ear off. He did take a guy's ear off, though. It was a guy, the story is the guy had a very bad cauliflower ear. Cauliflower ear, builds up a lot of tissue and gets hard, and it's very ugly from getting headlocked and punched and whatever over the years. Boxers have them. Well, Walter decided he was going to do a knee drop on this guy, and so he climbed to the top rope, jumped up in the air, and he was famous for his knee drop. You could throw a dime in the ring, and he could jump off the top rope and put his knee on that dime, and turn around and put it on it as well. That's how accurate he was. So he was going to put that knee right across the guy's chest. So the guy is looking up and seeing this guy coming down. The top of the ropes are 4 feet, and then he is 6'7", and then he jumps up. So you got this guy coming down from about 10 feet in the air, and this guy panicked, and so he moved. So Walter tried not to kill him by moving his knee, but he grazed him, and the ear came off and flopped across the ring. The referee took the ear, put it in his pocket, and gave it to the guy afterwards, but that led to many rematches as a result. But after that, he became Killer Kowalski. Some of the posters over here, you'll notice that Walter's wearing a mask. His final tour with the WWF, it was WWF at the time, now it's WWE, was as the Executioners. He was one half of the Executioners. John Studd was the other Executioner. Everybody knew it was Walter under the mask. It was Walter's voice and his mannerisms. Everybody knew. But the reason they had to use a mask was that's what he used to keep his toupee on, because it's pretty hard to wrestle with a full hair or headpiece and not have somebody rip it off. So he would wear the mask to keep it on. So you'll notice that's how he ended his career, was wearing a mask and calling himself the Executioner or the Destroyer. So, but I was friends with him for 32 years. He ran the wrestling school out of my karate school. His most famous student was Paul Levesque, Triple H. And Triple H, in fact, one of his first matches was with me. And I got him in the locker room, and I told him to the States, I said, but man, stick with it, you're going to go places. And obviously he has. So, and I called Triple H to let him know there was an auction, and he may have a representative from the office here that's making himself not known so that he can pick up some of the wrestling items. But anything that you'd like me to autograph, I've got his posters over there for my first match with him, as well as many rematches. I'd be glad to do it. Also, I'll answer any questions that you might have after the auction. So Walter was a really dear friend of mine. The name Killer, it's a terrible thing to be called that, but he made a good career out of it. But he was one of the kindest and one of the most intelligent men that I've ever met. Even something, we went to a party one time after a wrestling show. These people had this big party, a lot of young people. They had one of these tall puzzles of wood that you're supposed to put together. When you put it together, it's a nice block. And apparently these people have been working on this thing for like 3 hours and couldn't get it. And Walter just took a look at it, and I went and did something. I came back, and he put the last piece in, it was all together. He just had that ability to be able to, even with wrestling moves. There was a guy who was a heavyweight champion wrestler in college, and he had a certain move that nobody could get out of. And so Walter said, let me see the move. So he put it on, he says, next class. So he thought about it, came in, he said, put it on. He put them on, and Walter flipped them over and got them in just like that. So his brain worked incredibly. And for wrestling, there was no one better. So my first match was 29 minutes, and it's 29 minutes of total mayhem. You do not rest, you do not lie in the mat and what we call in the business grab a hold so you can take a breather. It was just constant motion, constant mayhem. And after the match was over, I was sitting on a steel chair, pile of sweat between my legs, heaving terribly. I was 29 years old. I thought I was in shape. Walter walks by and goes, nice match, kid. Like, you can just turn around and do another 29 minutes. So he's a great individual, and I'm honored that I had him as a friend for so long. And it was sad at the end, but we did what we could to do right by the family and whatnot. And I'm glad that the auction is taking place. Some of these things to Walter were very valuable. A lot of these things probably were gathered from all over the world. I mean, this man toured the world many times over. I mean, some of the most remote places. He would talk to me about going to little Indian villages and doing a wrestling show. I mean, this guy went to every part of the world. So he probably picked up a lot of these things, and that's why you see so many things gathered together. So Walter did not get married until he was 79 years old, and he married Teresa. So Teresa had looked after him for quite some time, and Walter said, somebody said, why'd you get married? He says, well, I had to because I knocked her up. But that was Walter. So he was late getting married, but Teresa really took care of him, and I really appreciated that she did that. And we ran a wrestling show for a benefit for her to help her along with some of the expenses that were accrued. And it was just, everybody came standing room only. Walter, I know he was looking down and smiling and seeing all the people that came and the old names that came out. And one of the posters over there is actually of the benefit. And I handed Teresa a big envelope full of money and said, here, do with it what you want. And I hope that this carries you through and takes care of you for a while. It was really an event that I'll never forget. In running, it was an honor to my friend. So he wanted to be he wanted his ashes dumped over deep water. So Teresa didn't know who to go to for that, but since I was in contact with her, that was, to me, Walter's last wish. And so my job was to see to it that his last wish was honored. So my brother-in-law happened to be the harbor master in Boston. So he took out a real nice police boat. He got very